Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guitar enthusiasts. Gregory Cockery here in the Wildwood lair. And we're messing around with some delicious acoustic guitars today. This is an SJ-200. And I'll tell you what, there's something about the Gibson acoustic guitars in general. The stuff they're making in Montana right now in particular is particularly drool-worthy. Every time I see them, I'm filled with an intrinsic sense of guitar lust. Maybe that's my thing. But I'll tell you what, you look at this thing and you say to yourself, yeah. And I like J200s because I'm a big son of a okay? And a guitar usually looks like a ukulele on me. And this thing is proportional to my large being, which is important. But also it's a guitar that you've seen people play over the years that are cool. You know, Pete Townsend from The Who always preferred Gibson acoustics for the most part. Jimmy Page would use some J200 activity here and there. Certainly you've seen Elvis with one. Bob Dylan's got his own signature variation on a SJ-200 at this particular juncture. So they're very well-known guitars, indoctrinated with the history of music. They first went in production in 1937, I believe. 1939 it was renamed the Super Jumbo 200. That's where the SJ comes from. As with Gibson's model numbering practices of the era, the 200 referred to its initial retail price of $200. Boy, I wish those days were back. But if that was, I'd probably be getting paid 2 cents an hour. It was 1947 when the tone woods changed. The back and sides are now being made of maple. And of course, a maple has a particular snap to it. That is different. You're going to get a lot of people talking about woods and what they do and don't do. But I think it's safe to say that people who are, I'm going to say in the sane column, will say that maple has a particular immediacy of attack and a brightness to it in guitar construction that add that particular timbre, if you will, to the tone. The timbre to the tone. Say what? I said the timbre to the tone. Just visually to look at, the guitar is stunning. And I find, you know, Gibsons play a little different than, say, a Martin. It's a totally matter of, I have both, and I enjoy both. Certainly when you listen to, you know, a lot of the Stone stuff, Keith always preferred Gibson acoustics. Pete Townsend, you know, some of the Zeppelin stuff, but for the most part, you know, a lot of the English rockers preferred, certainly the Beatles were fans of Epiphone and Gibson, so that kind of construction. Whereas if you listen to, you know, Neil Young, a Joe Walsh song, I mean, that really, you can hear those Martins coming through in that regard. So it's a different timbre. They actually complement each other. It's kind of the same thing with the Fender and Gibson world. You got to kind of have both. They do different things that are desirable. So I played a bunch of little different things to kind of give you an idea of what this guitar is capable of. Certainly good for individual notes, both up and down the neck. It's good for the Travis thing. It's good for you know, cowboy stuff you're doing, like Western swing. That kind of stuff. Sounds great for that. All that kind of stuff. And was used quite a bit for that kind of activity back in the day. So anyway, it's a very versatile guitar. And they're absolutely beautiful to look at. I'll tell you what, if you're an enthusiast and just want a guitar to look at as well as play, these particular guitars are stunning to behold. So, and the particular ones they're making for Wildwood, which are a couple different ones. We've got the, what is it called? True Vintage? Is that what we're calling them? No.
New Vintage.
New Vintage. This is very confusing, ladies and gentlemen, because in the Gibson Custom Shop, they're doing True Vintage Les Pauls and such. And these are not the True Vintage, but the New Vintage. Not only is it confusing, but it rhymes. But this is the New Vintage Ultimate, and there's also the New Vintage Hide Glue. And Hide Glue is a substance that, I'm going to just say, congeals in a way that is tone-friendly. So when you have guitars with Hide Glue, it's a more expensive process, but really seems to have a tone effect that is palpable to the listener and to the player. I know that sounds like poop, but when you play these guitars all day long, you're like, what's this guitar's got a little something, something. And all these little things add to the sangria, if you will, that you're sipping upon. The guitar sangria. I've never had sangria. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't think I want to. Well, you know, I don't drink anymore. As I said many times, it makes me break out in handcuffs, and that's not something you want out of, you know, a responsible member of your team. You know what I mean? You don't want, hey, where is he today? Oh, that's right, he's face down in a pool of his own saliva. So we try to avoid that kind of thing. That's why our productivity is pretty high here in the Wildwood lair. We get through some stuff. Anyway, so this is your SJ-200. These are kind of a new series of overviews that we're doing that just kind of says, hey, this is what these guitars are, and as an overview of the whole kind of guitar as opposed to a specific serial number. So you get a little history, a little playing, a little humor for the kids, which is always important because the world can be a sad place. That's why you need humor. Who's with me out there? These gentlemen. All right, cats, we'll see you later. Thank you very much. Oh.